Okay, so we build a model. Using the random number that was given to you, we figure out that the estimated annual total inventory cost is this number, 944.6. But watch out, this is the total cost based on the specific random numbers that were given to you. In other words, if we use a different set of random numbers, the resulting total cost will be different. So you really cannot claim this number is an accurate estimation because it depends on the random numbers. If you change a set of random number, then you get a different answer. So what would be a better way to answer the question? So what's a better way to answer the question? Well, here's the better way to do it. Let's run the simulation many times with different random numbers, and then take the average of annual cost out of those simulations. Okay, that will give you an idea about the average estimated total annual cost. So specifically, let's do this. Let's run 20 simulations, okay? Run the simulation 20 times with different random numbers and take the average of annual cost out of those 20 simulation runs. Okay, so now we're going to use this model and replicate it 20 times with different random numbers. So this is a completed model with total cost of this 944.6. And remember, this is the total cost based on the random numbers here. So now we need to make this model a dynamic model. Dynamic means that it's not based on this fixed random numbers. In other words, we need to use rand instead of the given random numbers. Okay, so just use rand everywhere, using rand to replace every random number. So I can simply drag down this cell to copy. Also here, change it to rand, drag it down. So that's the first step. Now we have a dynamic model where every time I press F9, it gives me a new estimated total annual cost. Okay, so now I'm going to replicate simulation for 20 times and asking Excel to report the resulting number from here for every simulation run. Okay, so I'm going to run 20 simulation instances, or I call it simulation runs, and Excel will report this number from every simulation run. How do I do that? You need something called one-way data table. Okay, by the way, we have used one-way data table in the past. If you forget how to use a one-way data table or how it actually works, check out this video. I want to run the simulation for 20 instances or 20 runs. So I create a column, just name it from 1 to 20. This is nothing but the index. So I want Excel to, in the end, store the total annual cost from this cell over here for every simulation instances. Okay, every simulation instances, I want Excel to report this number over to here. To do that, I need to first do this. In this cell, very important, it's this very cell over here equal to here. Okay, that tells Excel in this very first column of the data table that I'm going to set up, Excel is going to report the number from this cell over here. Okay, so that's the first step. Second step, I need to select the area where I want Excel to create the data table. It needs to select in this way such that those numbers are in the first column. This cell is on the top row. Now go to data, what if analysis, data table, leave row input cell empty, but here in column input cell, you will select any empty cell in the spreadsheet that doesn't contain any formula, any empty cell that doesn't contain any formula or anything. Okay, and then you hit OK, and that's it. Let me remind you again what happens. So when I set up the data table, when I do this and here. I say column input cell is here. What does that mean? Well, that means Excel will take the numbers in the first column one by one. Okay, there are 20 numbers. For every run of simulation, it will plug the number from this column into this cell, run the simulation, and then report the resulting number here back to this column. For example, the first simulation run, it will take this number 1, plug it into this cell, run the simulation, return this number back to this cell. In the second run, it will take this number 2, plug that number into this cell, run the simulation, return the resulting number here back to this cell, so on and so forth. Okay, now that I have 20 simulation runs and their total cost, I can take the average of those 20 numbers. Just AVERAGE, average of those 20 numbers. So that's it. This is my estimated annual total cost out of 20 simulation runs. When I press F9, it still jumps around. Well, it always jumps around because of the uncertainty. But you can kind of see that the level of variation in this number tends to be smaller than the variation in this number over here. As a matter of fact, if you run more simulation runs beyond 20, more likely like thousands or 10,000s, and then you take the average like this, you will generally find that the variation in this average tends to be smaller as you run more simulation runs. In other words, the more simulation run you have, the smaller the variation in this number you generally will see.